Hello, and welcome back to our podcast, News from the Real World, where we cover 10 articles that were posted on various blogs. I am Jeremy. I am a second-year technical direction grad.
I'm Allie. I'm a second-year SMPM grad.
I'm Damien. I'm a second-year costume design grad.
I'm Jessica. I'm a second-year costume design grad.
And I'm John. I'm a second-year lighting design grad.
And starting this week off, a little trigger warning for you. This is about trigger warnings. So the article is Who's Being Triggered by Scott Harmon, Consent, Power, and Trauma in the Acting Classroom. And this addresses several issues that I think are starting to come up more so in the field now, which is good. But it addresses several concerns where a lot of faculty members are having a hard time necessarily adjusting to the idea of it, or trying to weigh, the possible rights and wrongs, or preparing people for the real world, as is commonly said. And like one major quote of it is that words are hard. My colleagues sadly wonder how these students could possibly succeed. How the argument goes, can we train students to become actors if they wish to insulate themselves from upsetting material? So it's concerned, it's talking about people who are faculty members that are concerned about if we are trying to make everything so general and not have anything that triggers someone else, is it causing us to lose out on material that might have value to it because we're trying to insulate so much? And then the argument also goes about, are we really preparing them for the real world where they might not be getting, or they might be asked to do certain roles or be involved with certain groups that, trigger warnings are not a mindful, or not the mindset they are in. And, that work is out there in the world.
It's actually interesting that that's the perspective that article takes, because when I look at like some of the work that came out of Playground last week, I think people really dived into a lot of like hard material, and they were very brave about it. And so I'm sort of I don't know. I think there's always trigger warnings there, but I think I at least here at CMU, I'm seeing people are bravely diving into that and addressing issues that they want to talk about instead of shying away from it.
It's interesting because it's about trigger warnings. It's not censorship.
Yeah.
It's not don't do this material. It's hey, just like you would, maybe it's not the exact same thing, but just like you would with hey, there's going to be smoke and haze in this. You are preparing your audience, you are preparing people, you're preparing the actors before it even starts that this is content that they should prepare themselves for. And if they do not feel that they can do that content, then they can choose to not.
It's when you see a war movie and they do trigger warning because people have PTSD.
Right, that's a severe
And I think
thing.
it's more a reaction of what faculty and administration are starting to do in a lot of schools is, rather than even try to mess with the whole issue of trigger warnings, of issuing trigger warnings, of, okay, let's just choose something enough, or muted enough that won't cause a trigger warning.
I see.
I think one of the things that the article also addresses that I thought was very interesting and supports kind of the idea of what we as artists do in general. The fact that we as artists get to shape our own careers in terms of which route we want to take. And I think that's something that's so valuable that a lot of people don't also take to consider. And I think what I really enjoyed is that it addresses that in terms of that's what faculty has to remember.
Yes.
Is that even though you might think that at the end of the day, what happens once we leave once we graduate is completely up to us. You'll be there for a letter of recommendation, hopefully. But aside from that, once we leave, we're on our own.
Yeah.
And I think, we're all designers, but we kind of have the same sort of thing going on. Once we leave, we get to decide which route we want to take, what material we want to work on. And so I think that's something that resonated with me in terms of I get to choose. And I feel even here at CMU, with that survey that we have to take in terms of what we're comfortable, we're already kind of taking the steps here to decide this is the type of stuff that I want to work on. And sometimes because of circumstances it doesn't work out, I understand, but it's definitely something that is starting to shift for us.
And it kind of goes back to the articles that we've read like throughout the year of being like, okay, if we're handling like sensitive content in the room, like let's talk about having like therapists or like support people in the room as well to like help with the things that, you know, because like it could be like if we're looking at it from the audience, like the trigger warning from the audience point of view, but there's also like everyone has their own story. So like if you're dealing with a story about like assault or drug addiction or something like that, like, and an actor has an experience with it, like maybe they don't want to be discluded from that role, but it's also sensitive like topic for them to deal with. So I think also talking about having like support in the room is also very important. It's part of that conversation.
And I think when you have a lack of this, and you talked about choice, and it's a choice on the audience's part too, when you have a lack of just like a general, like this is gonna happen in this, you know, in this show, when you don't have that, then you have that dance piece that we read about a while ago where it's like the audience was very assaulted. Like it was this...
But there was no warning that they
the
were
dance
going to
people
get...
go out into the audience.
Yeah.
Like dance on
Yeah, like grind on people.
It's like that's why we go to
stuff.
strip clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a choice for the audience to be able to make, but only if they're given the correct information to do so.
Yeah.
True.
And I think the whole trigger warnings is something that the industry as a whole is still learning about and still working at implementing into multiple levels.
Right.
But it's all about creating that safe space. So.
And the argument that it won't exist in the real world is kind of ridiculous, because if you change
It'll
the
get
people who are going into the industry, then they are going to make the industry a place where that happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
True.
Speaking of safe places, Damien.
Yeah, so the article that I read this week is Kansas City should be a safe place to work for all theater professionals, written by Jesse Salisbury. So essentially what's happening in Kansas City is because of the location of the city, there's this sort of sense of isolation, and there's like a lack of proper resources in terms of handling sexual harassment in theaters. And, you know, in the wake of the Me Too movement and everything that's going on there, it's kind of been brought to the forefront. So just in terms of how can Kansas City begin to shift this sort of atmosphere, and how can they begin fixing it? And it references what Chicago is doing. The Chicago theater market has kind of initiated this organization called Not in Our House, where they've set standards for how it can be addressed in the city of Chicago. And it's like, how do we implement that into a town very different than Chicago or New York City, like Kansas City? So yeah, I think one of the big things that it harps on is the fact that a lot of theaters, small organizations, nonprofit theaters, don't necessarily always have a human resources department, and so there's really not a route to deal with that. And some of these houses in Kansas City are non-equity houses, so you can't even go to Actors Equity. And I think, as someone who's worked in a regional theater, I think it is kind of interesting. I think that is probably where it needs to start, is just kind of addressing the fact that most of these places actually need some sort of human resources.
Just because they don't have it doesn't mean they don't need it.
Exactly. Just because they don't have it doesn't mean they don't need it. So I think that that's probably where it needs to start. Because I remember even when I was leaving my job, I remember asking, should I have some sort of exit interview? And if so, who do I go to? And they all kind of looked at me like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so
But you did good.
I was like, all right, great. So yeah, I think that's a great, the right place to start, so that people do have a place to voice their concerns. But then in terms of like the nonprofits and smaller theaters, that's a rough one. I mean, like I feel like Not in Our House, Kansas City is definitely one place to start, is maybe to set a standard or organization that can handle that sort of thing for the artists.
I also think it's as companies grow and as regional companies tend to grow, and they add positions on, if they start adding full-time positions and stuff like that, it is one of those steps that eventually does get incorporated as having that HR person.
Right.
Yeah.
But there ideally should be a resource out there where even if it's a company of 2 or 3, there should be some link to something out there.
Maybe there's like a third-party theater HR company that like somebody wants to start.
Right.
Yeah,
You know?
like kind of. I mean, I know this is a
They
little
can
bit
take on
different.
clients or something.
Right,
Yeah.
but like similarly to how they just kind of created the sensitive content director position for HBO, but like I know that's with a
Interesting.
specific company.
Yeah.
And HR already exists, but like you're right, like
But
a third
as
party
things
that could
get bigger and more convoluted,
something,
yeah. As things grow, you need people to take on those specific positions that become more and more important to people.
Right, because even in companies, and we've seen this, even in companies where they do care and they have...
They try.
Yeah, they try and they have systems in place for harassment. Like, they still don't have an HR department.
Sometimes it
It's
defaults to
like-
production manager.
Or, yeah, like, production manager in combination with, like, you know, some other random person that you're like, wait, what do you do again?
And you're like,
not
I don't
HR?
know.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Maybe if you're lucky, company manager.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, that needs to
There's
be
feelings there.
established as a role that all companies should have, and not just the ones that have the resources available to do it. Yeah. Why? Why not?
I don't know. If I was like gonna change my job, I'd be like HR for theater, and I'd be like, oh, filthy rich. also like doing really
Would
good
you?
stuff.
Trying to make money.
Yeah, I know.
Theater is still in the title. So.
And doing good. Okay.
So
Oh, yeah,
jumping
so-
over.
All right. So one of the articles I read was "Why Can't I Be Both?" And this was by Sage Martin and Maggie Rogers. And it's sort of, it's not sort of, it is touching on fat discrimination and its impact on the American theater. And I think that it's really great because it defines what the word fat is. And it also describes like micro and macro level aggressions that people do in everyday life. And then also in the theater as well, which I thought were really fascinating. And a lot of them, you know, sadly, read and either have done or have had been in situations where you see these things. And it's like, you know, for example, like as a costume designer, the one thing that really popped out for me was costume designers making comments on the difficulty of finding clothing in plus sizes, even if it is framed as a joke. And it's like, coming from the fashion industry, like, you know, the average size in America is a size 18 to 22. And so, like, it is really an interesting like prejudice that happens, but most people in America are the size 18 to 22, and so it is really interesting. And I have been around costume designers that have done that, and it is super fucked up. Yeah, there's a lot of feelings in this article.
It's a good read.
It is a
Yeah.
really
It's really
good
good.
article. There's a podcast to it too if you want to listen. I think it's eye-opening, and it
Yeah.
really like it does hold a mirror to like actions that like you don't think about. Like even like it like mentions like airplane bathrooms, and like I was on an airplane the other day, a couple weeks ago. I was reading an article about the sizes of like airplane seats and how they're getting smaller, but that the average size of the person in America and in the world is getting bigger. And so it's like even that is a microaggression, like as an industry standard, and that's just for airplane seats. And
right.
so then we're talking about like looking at people on stage and like how like putting a fat person on stage becomes a choice, and that becomes a comment in our subconscious, which I think is fascinating. And like even just like doing like looking at like advertisements and things like that, and what our standard body type is, like even for both men and women, like men being like the tall bearded muscular guy, and the Instagram, like it's like the Instagram models that we see, and it's just constantly just shoved into your face.
I had a lot of feelings about this article. As a fat person in residence here at CMU, I don't know. I just like
No,
I thought there were a lot of.
I like read the article. Like,
I
I'm
read
like,
the article
talk
and I'm
about
like,
it.
well, one of the things, even speaking from like a costume perspective, like when you go shopping, I think one of the most frustrating things that I still do not understand to this
Yeah.
day is the fact that why are clothing sections still segregated? If we are looking at this
Totally.
transition
Yeah.
of like, you know, where the average size, why is it that like people have to go to a specialty store in order to buy clothing
Yeah.
that you're wearing every day?
Yeah.
So that to me is a huge problem.
And also,
But-
like I would say, like even like shopping, like plus size clothes.
Right.
Like, if you're shopping for like plus size, I'm doing quotes here
Right.
too, because that's also like a microaggression word. Like they're like, oh, the best plus size women clothes is
Right.
that style.
And, I mean,
info.
that's exactly
And
what
it's
I'm
like, that's
referring
it.
to.
And you're like, oh, okay.
But in terms of just like how it's happening in the theater, I mean, I can even speak from a personal perspective where when I first started a career in theater, I had every intention of becoming a performer. But I ultimately made the choice because I recognized that I was never going to be a leading man. I was never going to be, because of what I looked like. And yeah, like I've lost 50 pounds in the past semester. # keto works, y'all. But like I shouldn't have to make these changes because of just the way I look.
Just
it has to,
judgment.
right, because of judgment.
Because
I think even
outside pressure should not pressure you to change.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and even like as designers, I feel like that sort of prejudice still exists. Like if you don't look a certain way and if you don't present yourself in a certain way, like regardless of how talented you are, it's all going to come down to the appearance and like exactly how. Yeah. So that to me, is a huge issue that I think definitely needs to be addressed. And I mean, I've been in situations where like a character, for some reason, for the sake of humor, it was this young, thin actor who was heavily padded for comedic reasons.
Yeah.
And it's like, why?
Yep.
Why was that necessary? Like, why?
That's not a smart choice.
Right.
It's not a smart design choice anymore, and it's a part of that social commentary.
Right.
And I also think it's an issue that is not getting addressed enough and tends to be lost to the background noise.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of the time. Because people, it's been around for so long, it's just kind of accepted, haha, we laugh it off
Right.
a lot more. Because it's not one of these major social issues that we're trying to tackle in today's, world.
It's like taking a backseat to like the Me Too movement
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. But there was it's
There's a lot of noise out there of things being
and then they'll be
trying
like,
to be changed for the
oh,
better.
she's so brave being a plus size model. She's so brave, like that. I read a lot of articles like about that a lot. And then like even Damon mentions like padding on an actor. Like for a long time that padding was called fat padding, and we're recently changing it to body padding, and we're more recently trying to avoid doing that unless it's for like silhouette purposes of like he needs tall shoulders or something like that, like making smarter, more conscious and like
making it
compassionate
a
choices.
distinct choice for justifiable reasons.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that it also talked about that I thought was interesting is just the fact that a lot of the times when actors are cast, they are cast in like their size takes is taken into consideration. Typecast.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's great to see films being made about this sort of thing where like
Dumplin'
on Netflix,
Yeah.
and what else? Like I'm thinking about like This Is Us also. And
the one Sarah something is Sarah Burgess is a loser.
Where you're dealing with not even just regular sized people, especially in America. Like like let's just accept the fact we're a fat country. Like not everybody here looks like a Victoria's Secret model.
We all live pretty sedentary lives, and we eat a lot of meat, and like we're large people. Like that's how humans are evolving.
10 out of 12. I do a lot of sitting.
Yeah.
This is a great article. I highly recommend reading it. It's very smart.
Yeah.
Moving over to a little bit different,
Slight temper change.
This article was Women in Theater in Business, a case study with Bohemia Realty Group on the Interval by Danielle Feder. And it discusses a realty group in New York City, Bohemia Realty Group, and all of the founding members are also in the arts and like active in the arts and have started other businesses as well. So they're like
big old branching out.
Yeah, so they're actresses. They're also realtors. They're also like owners of like coffee shops and all that. And it was really interesting because to hear how they got started, because it was like they just wanted more stability, and so they started this realty group, and it started because friends of theirs would like come in and be working at this company, and they were like, well, I need a place to stay, and they're like, oh well, and they'd do some
network
searches, and then they'd do some networking and they'd find them a place to stay, and they're like, wait, but we could do this. This is what realtors do. And so they started that, and it was really interesting to read that it's possible, because it's very often heard that like arts and business you can't do both. You have to like either be completely committed to your art or like do something else.
There's no profit in art. What are you talking about?
Non-profit. We don't make a profit.
Or like it's all about the side hustle.
And so and it was interesting because they were like they had jobs before that, but the one girl was like, I'm tired of being a waitress. Why is that the only job I can have?
Yeah, like why is it the only job with like hours that are like like easy to shift around.
Exactly.
Realtor's actually really smart, and if it's like all a bunch of theater people, everyone understands.
Exactly.
It's not like you're dipping out. Like it's just like
An
you have other
audition,
responsibilities. Yeah.
And the writer interviewed them, and she was like, "Yeah, how does that work?" She's like, "It's actually really great because when one person has a 10 out of 12, the other person can be like, oh, I can take your appointment for that day.
That's so nice.
You know, like I can run the keys up to the tenant.
Where can
you know?
I sign up?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because they have so many contacts within the theater industry, a lot of like their brokers are also artists, and it's just really cool to read and really heartening. And like, maybe I'll go back and reconsider. No, because at one point in time I wanted to be a realtor.
I was like, and I'm submitting my resume right now. Okay, good.
I'm quitting theater forever.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a realtor, and
You'd be great.
the end.
You'd be great at anything.
The end part of it, the guy said, it's funny how people study something in school and then like never use it ever, and that made me go, I have to do my art.
Yeah.
So I went back for theater and stuff. But you don't have to choose. You just don't have to choose.
Yeah.
Is the motto. Is the
The world's oysters are open.
Yeah, it's
Roosters.
let's remind everyone, theater people like to eat and have a place to
Yeah,
sleep.
and we're
as
highly
well,
creative
so.
and really motivated and like self-motivated and team working and
And the other really
Hire all
important
of us,
thing.
please.
hire all of us.
The other really important thing I
viewers.
thought came out of here was that one of the founders said it's ridiculous how people think that arts and business is separated, and that artists don't learn business when they are in school. They are
That's
not taught.
hilarious.
It's
Like,
ridiculous.
it's so stupid.
Designing is 5%, budget handling
It's
is
like,
another
I can
90.
spreadsheet.
We can budget
Yeah.
better
Like,
than a lot of the people graduating
seriously.
Yeah.
from with other degrees.
Like
because,
we handle. My friend just got like a $400,000 like budget handed to her, and she's handling it. I'm like, I'm so proud of
the
you.
amount of university money that we spend here actively.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to Excel the shit out of this budget. You're going to get spreadsheets
You're like, do
for
you
days.
like it color coded?
You're going to think I have a
also
business
designer.
Right?
How do you want it sorted?
Yeah.
No, but like
Color coded.
the fact that like actors and actresses don't have that training, like that's so
Yeah,
silly.
It goes back to like
They're
the
not actively
resume
working
man.
with
Yeah.
the money.
Yeah,
So
but
they're not getting that experience. Because honestly, we are privileged at this university because we have a few classes that actually teach budgeting.
Right.
But a lot of budgeting in other universities is taught by you're the TD or you're
Yeah.
the costume supervisor for the show. This is the budget and this is your money and you have to keep track of it.
Yeah,
if you're
true.
not, and we talked about this a little bit ago with an article, if you're not taught contracts in the business sense,
Correct.
when you get your contract,
Exactly.
how the hell do you know if you're being
Yeah.
if it's being fair, if you're like
That's why
what
so
to
many
look
actors
for?
rely on the actors equity to like if it's actors equity compliant, great, it's okay.
Right.
But they don't really
This
know.
is what I encourage people: take
Right.
a class, educate yourself, Google that shit.
I mean, honestly, this needs to start even at a younger age. Like,
Totally.
let's start in high school.
I wish
because
my mom told
I
me
mean,
how to budget a
truth be
you know
told,
what I mean?
the
Like,
first time I had to file taxes, I had no fucking clue what I was
Yeah,
doing.
totally.
How many years later, and I still have no fucking clue what I'm doing. All I hope is that I'm not breaking the law.
You're like,
and I
yeah.
still don't know if I am or not.
Right?
So
now they're coming after you. It's on the internet.
it's like, am I on some IRS list? Like, probably. Do I know why? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Will I be in jail? Absolutely. They're
Probably
gonna come and
at
get
some
me.
point, yeah.
So
Well, then, with tax and things like that, they have the online resources like, yes,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
People just don't,
Yeah.
they should be taught even before, from the beginning, they should be taught how to manage. what
kindergarten,
comes in and
let's
out.
go.
Yeah.
right.
I mean,
You have 3 crayons,
Yeah.
and you must give up 1/3 of your crayons to the
The
government.
government.
That's like that guy from the Fire Festival.
Or
Well,
Ron Swanson.
For instance, in middle school, I went to middle school here in Pennsylvania, and we had home ec class.
Mhm.
So we did home economics. We budgeted for a house and everything there,
So smart.
but we didn't talk about taxes.
But also,
Exactly.
you're a millennial, so
Right.
you can't own a house, so you're going to have to rent, so we have to change
But-
that budget. So.
Okay, next article.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well,
Passionate about realty.
Last thoughts.
the last thought was that I don't remember what I was going to say. I got sidetracked, so just kidding.
That my home ec class
Moving
was
on.
about sewing and cooking.
No, it had to do with like paperwork or something. I don't remember. I'll
When you
probably
come back
think
to
about
it,
I'll
just
come back to
throw it in there.
Budgeting going into the Super Bowl.
Oh my God, yeah. Jezebel, which is like my go-to for real news. So I'm really glad that this was
That
on
explains
here.
so much.
So much, guys. I know, right? So this is called Give the Men Some Fucking Pom-Poms and Let Them Dance as Single Ladies. And it's by Esther Wang. And I don't know about you, but I did not watch the Super Bowl. Shocker.
Nope.
I can't afford that.
Did that already happen?
It did already.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I missed
How
the
did you miss
commercials.
all of Adam
You missed
Levine
everything.
on Facebook? Like literally anyone's Facebook is just Adam Levine. Anyway,
It's
go ahead.
true.
Oh man, I
All right,
need to
cheerleaders.
figure this out. Yeah. So, anyways, so it was for the first time in the history of the Super Bowl. Men. I just like this first sentence. So I'm gonna read it. For the first time in the history of the Super Bowl, men will not only be destroying each other's bodies in the field in order to make their billionaire owners even more wealthy, but dancing as part of one's team, poorly compensated cheerleading squad. And then it just talks, which is like, I think like, you know, that's a sentence to like set up like how
The
one's
tone of the
supposed to, yeah, the
article,
tone,
yeah.
yeah. But basically the
It was pretty
article,
hard.
yeah, it's about two guys, Quentin Perron and Napoleon Ginnies, I think is how it's pronounced, and they are the two new male cheerleaders for the Rams cheerleading squad, and they're professional dancers, they're choreographers, they're all these things, and they're they got on the team. Personally, I have no problem. I think that this article's just hinging on like this like wave of people being upset that men are also getting included in the all-inclusiveness campaign that we're all doing, and I just think like
Wait, we're making the all-inclusive all-inclusive?
I know it's shocking.
How
It's
dare we?
shocking. I know it's like what, and like if you're gonna scream I want inclusivity and then not include people, like you're just not, you should
Yeah.
probably figure your shit out first. But I don't care. It just reading this article I was like, but like I loved Bring It On when the male cheerleaders threw the girls in the air. Like it was fun.
I have
I mean-
one problem
Okay,
with
tell
this
me.
article though. Why are we assuming that these men want to wear crop tops
know, that's
and
the-
carry pom poms?
that's what I
Like
was saying,
just
like, this
because they
article's
are
so
male
stupid.
cheerleaders does not mean they want to like run around with their
Yeah.
midriff showing.
And-
Why are you making this assumption? How do you even know if they're like
Yeah.
femme at all? Why is it that we think this is what they want to
And
do?
like they literally are like in the article being like, well, we were just like sort of, we found out about the audition, we were like, well, we're dancers, why not? And it's like, yeah, actually that sounds like fun. And also maybe it's gonna open a world to a bunch of guys who want to be fucking cheerleaders. Let them
Right.
do their thing.
Like,
I mean, some of the highest sports scholarships at my university in
Cheerleading.
Georgia were the male cheerleaders
Yeah.
because they need them.
And also like it is a sport, guys.
Yeah.
People get injured. They train like professional athletes, or they are professional athletes. Like, let's see you get off the sofa and do that.
I think
right?
a
Before you judge.
portion of this article was written because it's a hot topic.
It's a little tongue in cheek.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I have to meet my article quota for the week.
Yeah.
Right.
No offense to
I
the,
saw someone get mad
no
about
offense
this
to the
on
writer of
Facebook,
it,
yeah.
but
Right.
No, but
it feels a little reaching.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, the one thing that it did, I know that I just went hard into this poor girl. Sorry, what's her name?
Sorry, Esther Wang.
Sorry, Esther Wang.
But, like,
but
I don't
sorry. Those
Also,
are my initial
when,
feelings.
I also
when
shout
was
out
it written? It was
Jezebel.
written before the Super Bowl.
I
correct?
think so, like at 11
Yeah.
a.m.
Yeah.
She was like really
So-
hating on it.
But I think one of the things that it did bring up is like the whole what they're wearing thing.
Ugh,
You heard my
Sure.
feelings, but the idea of them being cut out of certain songs, that to me is a little ridiculous. Like I get it. Yes, you're singing "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend."
Yeah, but
like,
a guy can dance to that.
A
Look,
guy
at,
can
look at
dance.
all the guys dancing
Exactly.
in that in the movie.
or
yeah, like seriously though.
or like dancing to Single Ladies.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
Anybody can dance.
Anybody
to
can
that
dance to
song.
Single Ladies. There's a video somewhere on Facebook of me dancing to Single Ladies.
Someone find it and post it as a
Nope,
link.
you will
at the
not
bottom
find
of
it.
the
It is
YouTube.
literally hidden. But
Hidden
yeah,
ones can
so
always be
it
found.
exists. So yeah, that part to me is ridiculous. But making the assumption that they want to dance around in frilly crop tops and booty shorts,
So ridiculous.
it's like why are you making that assumption?
But give them pom poms. Pom poms are fun to look at.
Yeah,
That's all I gotta say.
so are the cheerleaders. but
Yeah,
that's-
it's all great. They're
We're all
magic.
humans.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
cool,
True.
cool.
So dance is powerful. We're gonna go into the next one.
Yeah, I got 18 minutes before class.
I get
Yum, 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 yum.
I get to feel human again. How arts programs and prisons are bringing new hope to incarcerated individuals. On
I like it.
today, this was awesome. I loved it
Good.
so much.
Feel good.
Yeah, so it's this program created by this, and I really wish that the thing itself had more information without going into the book.
Right.
Because I'm trying to remember her name. Lady started this program that she took into correctional facilities in upstate New York, and it brings theater and dance and art into the facilities as part of the rehabilitation, and it's amazing. And they seem, I think, one of the things that I liked the most about it was that not only was she she is a very generous person, and like she quit her for-profit job because she wanted to do this. She wanted to make their lives better. Mm-hmm. But she also employed one of the former residents as her manager for this, and that's wonderful because it's like you're not separating yourself, right? Like you're not being like, I am bringing you this wonderful thing, enjoy and be better.
Yeah,
you know, it's like.
I'm not bequeathing the arts upon thee.
I mean, it's also like art is therapeutic. Yeah. What a concept! Like who
healing
knew, right? It's like why are we in 2019 and barely like starting to acknowledge the fact that artists have been trying to do this for years?
Yeah.
And I think I'm
I'm
getting
sure
some
that
serious.
Caveman was upset that like his dog, like your wolf got killed.
Yeah,
by,
that's
like,
why we have that's why we have cave paintings.
That's why he did it. He was like, I was here. So
right.
was my puppy.
But it's like I don't know. It's giving me some serious like Orange is the New Black vibes. Just hearing about this, and I think it's great. I mean, I think it's amazing that art is being extended into these sort of places, and I feel like pop culture is also kind of picking up on that. Like I just you see it happen on TV, like in Orange is the New Black, where they're putting on performances. Mozart in the Jungle, if any of you have seen that, there's a part where the symphony orchestra goes and performs in a jail, and so it's like it's
also,
kind of becoming.
Johnny Cash, his best-selling album was Folsom Prison.
Cool. But yeah, I don't know it, so that's why I'm not commenting on it. But
I know he's never seen.
No, but the recording of the actual when he went and performed it is so good. Anyway,
y'all, I'm Mexican. We did not listen to Johnny Cash growing up. Sorry, but
but you gotta watch the movie, Damien. It's so good.
It's like no, I grew up listening to Vicente Fernandez, and if you don't know who that is, then I'm shaming you. See how it feels?
No, you put him all the time. I listen.
So, but yeah, like I think it's a great thing that's happening, and I'm glad that it's not just happening in media, but it's actually happening in real life.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. And I like that it, even from their own mouths, they're like, this helps me be more patient, and like, I'm going to be better able to go back into society because I, cultivated like my happiness while I was still in here.
Well,
and like
art,
way to.
Yeah, and like to create art, it involves some sort of self-reflection. So it does, like we say, like become therapeutic because you're actually taking a note of like what's going on with you in that moment.
And they're working together in this, like
collaboration.
You can't.
Works on the communication skills. It's really hits all the
really
checkboxes.
The best thing ever.
Talking about being creative.
Yeah.
Johnny.
TheAtlantic.com has a video that they have up there that's by Aaron and Alex Craig, and they have an article with it. It's called "One Man's Trash is Another Man's Cyborg," and it is fascinating when you watch it. The guys went to film this guy, and this guy makes pretty much robots that he can get into, and he dresses up at them and performs with it, and it's out of common day garbage. So like they do a close up, it's like an egg slicer. Part of that was part of a piece of the armor that the guy has. He has a bunch of different ones that he goes around and performs in, and
it's just creative reuse.
It's just fascinating how he's reusing all sorts of garbage. All of it's 100% from garbage. They talked about when they get into the house, it's like 120 degrees inside the house. And the guy's just like sitting there like it's nothing. They're like sweating and pouring sweat because the guy's in a 170-pound suit walking around. These suits are just large and heavy. And
they're not necessarily built for lightweight.
Yeah.
It's just
so
built
like
with what?
Suits.
Yeah, it's a full-on suit that they have, and it's amazing what he does with it.
That's really cool.
It's a really good watch.
Yeah, I would definitely say watch it and things.
These suits are insane.
I would recommend people go out and watch this because there are a lot of really cool things that he's been able to do and recreate
and especially like he's interacting with kids. There's one in the video where it's like showing a kid shooting a Nerf gun at him, and he just interacts with people in these suits.
Does he have an Instagram?
That lightheartedness too that he's able to bring into it.
Yeah.
So.
That's so cool.
It's
but also
awesome.
like recycle, because I think we have like 12 years left before the earth collapses.
Maybe less.
We need to do so much better about recycling.
But
anyways.
awesome.
Moving on. We have an article from Pro Sound Web, What It Really Means to Equalize a Room by Bob McCarthy. And this talks about, trying to take full advantages of equalizing the space, equalizing it in the two different areas, which is both the speaker, the transducer itself, and the space and how it reverberates around the space. Overall, it's just a really dense read. It's quite lengthy, but it is a good article, especially if you're interested in sound in any way. Things that factor into getting the right equalizer, how to set things, and what things to keep in mind. But it's really just it's a heavy factual article. But yeah.
Awesome.
So
Cool.
there's not too much to say on that one, but yeah.
In costumes, we count to 4, and our science is limited to dyes. So,
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that.
Right.
I'm
Well-
like, why is it broken?
But speaking of sound,
There's a test online. Give the sound article to the lighting guy. I mean, come on.
I know.
Hey,
It's the same thing. You plug things into a wall to make it work.
just the trick is don't let the blue smoke out.
I think mainly it's we create sound all the time. It's just ambient noise of fans.
Yeah.
What happens is there's a bunch of tests you can take that it's on The Verge. And what they've done is they've compiled these different tests that people have made, and one of them is like, how tone deaf are you?
Oh no.
So you can go through, you can listen, and it tries to test to see if you're tone deaf or
I'm
not.
definitely. Did you do it?
I couldn't get all the way through it.
Okay.
So it's
So,
start, but
okay.
but they say you should wear headphones with it, and then they go through, and there's another one where they're like, if you have experienced the culture, can you name if the song was used, if it's for a child or if it's for an adult, the song,
Oh, interesting.
and to see if you can tell the differences between that, and things like that. And then they have another one which is about the synthesized version of the song and things like that, and it's just playing and testing your ears on what you can listen to, and how those. And how well you respond to it, and if you can, how many problems do
If
you
you
really
didn't blow
have?
out your
Shows you if you have the ear
eardrums
for
already.
sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
Did all those rock concerts really affect your
Yeah.
hearing or not?
Well, it's also like
Definitely.
anytime you hear like a high pitched ring in one ear.
That's
and
when
then-
someone's
and then
talking
it
about you.
No, and then it goes away. That's actually not what it is. But that is when. So in
You got
your
into grad
in your
school, you're
ear, you
fine.
have little tiny hair follicles that actually is what allows you to hear. And it's what happens is when one of those breaks, and you lose
Oh,
that frequency
yeah.
forever. in
Oh my
that ear.
god.
Oh my
Yeah.
So when
god.
you hear that high pitched tone,
I'm
that's
amazed.
broken and going. Oh, okay, now then your brain goes. Oh, well, that's
I'm not gonna
dead.
be able to hear that
What
anymore.
It just
Yeah.
goes away.
My question is, what exactly is the purpose? Like, I've wondered this for a while because I was actually a former music teacher. So, what is the purpose of finding out if someone is tone deaf? Like, I understand, like, you know, if you're a singer, being tone deaf is obviously like a huge problem. But like,
I think it's more for yourself to find out if you.
but why? Like, I'm just saying, like, as
Like,
someone
do you wanna
like,
know?
I'm not, I'm not tone deaf, but like if somebody. I don't know what the
I
purpose
guess
is.
the,
Like,
yeah, my
like, for
question
me-
is also with like, why does it matter if you have perfect pitch? You know what I mean? Like, it's the same sort of question.
Right.
It's
Because
like,
it matters to some people, it doesn't to others.
right, but I'm saying
And
like,
I think
I'm,
that's what
I'm
it
just always
is.
curious when I'm like maybe singing in the car or something like that. Am I really singing to the right? Like for me, it's a curiosity
But
thing.
it's not
Right,
gonna
but
tell
for
you
me,
how
but
well-
I won't do anything with it afterwards.
I wonder
Exactly,
if as
though,
a sound
because it's-
designer
I'm
you
just
would
curious.
design, if like you were designing for audiences of hard of hearing, that you would take that into consideration designing.
right, but I'm saying
Maybe.
unless like you're working in that industry, is there really like, because I just think about like, you know, like Florence Foster Jenkins, you know, she was tone deaf, but she loved singing,
Yeah,
and so like
yeah,
she
yeah.
didn't care. So like
Yeah.
that's my thing. It's like why is it important? And
She also
like,
didn't she
I-
also
also,
have like
that's why
something
I-
that made it sound like she was correct?
well, I mean that's the whole point of being tone deaf is that like you
no,
can't
no,
tell.
no. But no, but like they can't tell. But like to her, like in her own, I think she had something.
It's like a psychological thing, wasn't it?
No,
Or-
like
I
a
don't know.
physical. Like there was something physical that made it. Something had happened. I feel
Right.
like, and she actually thought she was listening to herself, and to herself it sounded on
Correct.
pitch.
Right.
Which like I think tone deaf people like it.
I think you can't.
They don't know. Like
no,
they don't
when you're
know if
tone
it's.
deaf, when you're tone deaf, you just can't tell that you're singing
Can't-
off
yeah,
pitch.
yeah.
My mother is extremely tone deaf, but does that keep her from singing
Oh,
in
no,
church?
same,
No,
same.
absolutely
Yeah.
not.
And I don't think any of these tests are intended to be
So
as
sweet.
such. I think it's more just for people who are self-curious and want to discover something about
Well,
themselves.
now that you
It's
said
like
it's
a
actually.
Facebook test.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like which
Yeah.
Disney princess are you?
Right?
Yeah, which whole grain am I?
Yeah, that's fine.
Has something to do with the treatment she had for something earlier in life. Now I'm gonna look it up. Anyway,
No.
Two.
Anyways, moving on to our final article.
With 7 minutes to
Yeah,
spare.
right?
This one is hilarious because it applies to all of us.
Speaking
And
of sleep.
the title of this
I
article.
actually laughed and didn't even want to read this article. How insulting.
Let's see. The title of this article is it possible to repay your sleep debt?
So is it?
Why being well rested matters. As if we don't hear about this enough. So
we had the
essentially,
option.
sleep
Sounds like a
debt.
life hack, too.
Sleep debt is just referring to continuously losing sleep. So this just means that like when we don't get between 6 and 10 hours of sleep a night,
Oh,
you're slowly
10.
accruing.
6?
Right. You're slowly accruing what's referred to as sleep debt, and depending on how, depending on how much you accrue, it starts affecting your health. Like, it affects your, people usually develop weight gain, diabetes, high blood pressure, other heart conditions.
Anxiety,
And so
blah, blah, blah.
one of the things about this article is that it tries to give you these like tips on how to, better your sleep schedule, which I found fascinating because I was like, this person has probably never been in grad school.
Right.
So
Or has never been in the theater industry.
Or has
Yeah,
never
well,
worked in the
number
theater
two is
industry.
exercise regularly, which is assuming I have the extra time to exercise, given that I'm getting enough sleep
Right.
to
right.
give time
No,
to
yeah.
exercise.
Now here's the
That
like,
colloquium thing that happened.
Was there
Right.
a colloquium?
That was about how many hours for grad school. Anyways.
Oh, right.
Oh,
Well,
that
and
makes
like I
sense.
understand, it's an important article because yes, we all. It's just a reminder as to why my sleep habits are so unhealthy. As I sit here, drinking 4 cups of coffee at
Truth.
almost at 1:30 p.m.
Yeah.
It just really it's a reminder of your sleep schedule sucks.
Yep.
Fix it or you're gonna get fatter.
Take
and
care of
diabetic.
yourself.
So, like,
Ah, so dark.
I mean that's.
I mean,
Yes.
I do like number one because I was like, develop a sleep sanctuary. All right, Amazon Prime. I'm about to order me 8 body pillows. Like, what am I supposed to
Well,
like?
the whole
okay.
sleep sanctuary thing, I get that
Don't work
one.
in your bed.
Yeah, don't work in your bed.
eat
Those
in your
are
bed.
good general
Right.
habits.
Or one of the ones that I had never thought of is that if you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't go back to sleep, it says to leave your room,
Yep.
which I had never done before, but that made so
Don't
much sense.
stay in there fighting.
Leave
for
your
safety.
room, go to the living room, go somewhere else until you get tired again. So it says to only enter your bedroom or go to bed when you're
Oh, so
actually
you
tired.
tricking your body into just being like, this is a room for sleepy time.
You're like a Pavlovian, like,
Yeah.
this is where we sleep.
When I enter the room,
Guys, I'm
only
gonna do that for the
sleeping.
next month, and I'll come back.
Well, and then the thing is, it gives you this also tip about building up to see whether or not you have sleep debt, where you add, you go to sleep at the same time every night and wake up at the same time, and then you add 15 minutes of sleep. And I was like, how can I do that?
We had an article about this before, and it was like, buy a new mattress.
Yeah.
It's
That
like,
was my favorite. Yeah.
If we had the capabilities to do this,
Yeah.
I struggle to go to bed by 11 and get up at 7 a.m. And that is also, like, I struggle to do that. And because I'm usually in bed like 12, 12:30, 1,
Right.
and then I'm trying to and then I'll be like, oh, I'll just get up at 7:30, and like I try to shift it, and then I'm like compromising work, or if I go home that early, I'm like, okay, then I have to get up at 6, but I'm so tired that I'm like, I sleep to 8.
I'm usually getting towards my bed at like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
average,
Yeah.
and usually waking up about 6 a.m.
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
It was interesting.
That sounds about right.
This week, Monday, I didn't have any calls for once. It was glorious. I went home and I was talking to my wife, and we're like, okay, we're gonna go to bed at like 10, and at like 10:30 we're finally falling asleep. But I woke up the next day. I was like, and the whole day I was like, man, I feel great. This is awesome.
What's going
This
on?
is awesome.
New world.
Right.
Last night I had a crew call. I didn't get home till like
Yeah.
11:30.
Yeah, I know. And it's like
So
when
I'm
I
in
leave my
bed,
apartment, I'm like, bye,
12:30, 1 o'clock. I'm going to sleep, and like this morning I'm just like,
Yeah, there's just like, I mean,
It's so depressing.
I feel like
it's hard to be able to balance that when you have
It
such
is.
crazy schedule.
Yeah,
That's
when the
true,
schedules
too.
are so crazy. Also, like, just one of the things that I struggle with too is like eating healthy. Whenever it's like, because then
Well,
you
then
can
you're not
eat
drinking
health.
enough water. You're,
not
like,
drinking
reaching
enough.
for the carbs.
Right. Well,
like-
but it's like you don't get enough sleep. So then you wake up in the morning, you try to wake up late, so that means that breakfast usually has to be on the rush, which means that you have to make a bad decision for what you're having for breakfast, which then usually leads to spending money, which then causes anxiety, which then keeps you awake at night. So it's like this vicious cycle of like, I don't know how to work as a human.
Do you want to talk about it?
No, maybe I just
Okay.
need to become a robot. Where's this guy? I
Yeah.
need one of his suits.
Well,
So he's in New York, Brooklyn.
Great.
Obviously.
all right. Well, thank you for joining us this week. Get some sleep.
Yes.
And
Make a sleep sanctuary. Test it out for a month.
Right.
Write it and tell
feel
us.
free to
how
write
you
us in the
do
comments.
it.
Tell us how it went for you.
Yeah.
But
It's like, does he make these robot suits in plus sizes?
So meta.
next
It's all
question.
there.
Or with pillows inside, so I
Yeah,
can just fall
it's like
asleep.
asleep at the same time.
Ooh.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Bye.
Bye.